What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to give you our Overreaction Monday takes from Week 11 in the NFL. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, over 85% of you are still not subscribed to the channel. Please be sure to hit that red subscribe button and turn on notifications, as it will help us create more daily content for you. Thank you and enjoy today's video. Next Sunday, even back to Thursday, wild weekend that we saw in the NFL, Week 11, just an absolute atrocity to say the least. I mean, it was just terrible football all around. Have you seen this bad of football at all, ever?
I mean, can we say it's bad football, or is it just really competitive football? Because I said in the offseason, a lot of adjustments that were made have caused a balance in the NFL, and we see a lot of up and down weeks from teams, but that's because we have a lot of balanced teams, and it's just we don't put a lot of credit behind some teams. Like when you see the Kansas City Chiefs go and beat the Dallas Cowboys, or you see the Houston Texans go and beat the Tennessee Titans, we're just not considering some of these teams to be up to that level, but maybe they are. Maybe we need to just start crediting every team as being good enough to play their competition no matter who it is.
I wouldn't say no matter who it is, since Detroit still doesn't have a win, but
1 out of 32, not bad.
I get what you're saying, that there was an evening out in the NFL. I think it's just tough because these teams that we expect greatness out of, we're missing key players. The Cardinals, no DeAndre Hopkins and no Kyler Murray. For the Cowboys, no Amari Cooper. CeeDee Lamb goes out during the game. You're missing Tyron Smith. You're missing a lot of key players throughout these big games, and I think it's causing the play on the field to just reflect terribleness. I mean, there is nothing that I have seen this weekend and almost the entire season that proves to me that there's a team out there that can really just take it and run, which is why I think our video the other day about, betting your house on a team is a lot scarier, because at the end of the day, there's not a team that you say that's the team that's going to take it all. They are clearly more dominant than everyone else. The Green Bay Packers lost to the Minnesota Vikings, who have been reeling week after week after week. So there's a lot to it, but I want to kind of talk about the Colts and the Bills here. The Colts, they have laid out the foundation just as it was laid out for them from the Jacksonville Jaguars and also from the Tennessee Titans, where if you pound the rock up the middle against the Buffalo Bills, that is where they are most susceptible. And it seems like that is just the blueprint to beating this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it, but when you look at this game, they were missing Star Lotulelei, who's a massive nose tackle. They were missing Tremaine Edmonds, who's a massive middle linebacker. Two big players that are going to help you in the run game. And, it's not going to stop Jonathan Taylor from running for almost 200 yards and 5 touchdowns, but it's going to suppress that just a little bit, and maybe that's enough to give your team the jolt it needs on both sides of the ball to not only get the stops, but put up points and help balance this game out. But you got to deal with these injuries as they happen, and that's no excuse. So what we saw from Jonathan Taylor is just putting the league on notice, because the Indianapolis Colts are climbing back up this leaderboard. They're becoming one of the toughest teams to play in the AFC right now. And just because they don't have the best passing attack doesn't mean that their run game can't take them all the way at this point, because Derrick Henry was doing it for the Titans. Now we see Jonathan Taylor doing it. I think that it could finally stick for this team, for the Colts, and they could definitely make some big moves if they just keep this momentum going. It's going to be interesting because they got some tough competition ahead, and they're really going to have to prove themselves, and it's really going to show us who the top teams in the conference are in the next few weeks.
I mean, you talked about the Colts and their tough competition. Let me lay it out for you. Next week, they are back home taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After that, they have the Houston Texans, who just went and beat the Tennessee Titans at home. The Patriots then come to town. Then they have to go on the road to Arizona to face the Cardinals. Then they take on the Las Vegas Raiders. And then they finish with a sweep of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, I mean, until you get to week 18, it's going to be bloody hell for this team. They are going to be in the thick of it, fighting for their playoff lives. There's a lot to it, but they're also not the only ones. And I talked a little bit about them so far, but the Texans and the Titans, huge game that we saw in Tennessee. Now, obviously, the weather played a little bit of a factor as to Tannehill not being able to throw the ball as well. And you saw, but at the end of the day, the Texans had to play through it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can give as many of the issues weather-wise and just all of that to the Titans, and fine, I'll take it. But the Texans had those same elements, and they still were able to outscore and outproduce the Tennessee Titans. And I think the Tennessee Titans, for the first time, have looked susceptible without Derrick Henry. I just want your thoughts on like what that means for them moving forward, kind of what you saw in this game that might have Tennessee Titans fans scared for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on this defense now to pick up that slack, and it seemed like they were doing a fairly good job for the first 2 weeks that Derrick Henry was out, but we knew this was going to come. We knew that the Tennessee Titans could not sustain this forever, especially after the loss of Julio Jones, which is massive. A.J. Brown can't do it by himself, and then the number 2 is Marcus Johnson, a rookie receiver who then gets hurt in this game. Now you're going really far deep on your roster to find some guys to work with. And these are guys Tannehill does not throw to on a day-to-day basis. It's not guys he works with, so the chemistry is not there. They're trying to do this on the fly, and it's really just not going to work. Then when you have a run game that's just so stagnant, can't do anything, you're one-dimensional, and that puts all the pressure on Ryan Tannehill to do everything. You can't expect him to do everything when he doesn't really have any weapons, A.J. Brown being completely smothered the entire game. So it's just a recipe for a disaster. If this pass rush, which is the strength of this defense, is not going to do their job, then nothing's going to happen because the secondary is so porous right now with all of the injuries. So you're relying on the pass rush on the defense and the passing game on the offense. And if either one's not working, this team is not going to win that game.
Listen, I'm with you. I think that it's tough for me, right? Because at the end of the day, the Tennessee Titans, they had the Hulk essentially behind them, and they just can't rely on the running game anymore. Maybe Jeremy McNichols can be a little bit more of a difference maker than we saw Foreman and Peterson be, but at the end of the day, I don't see much production from the running back position coming until the playoffs when Derrick Henry can come back, if he can come back. I mean, I know a lot of Titans fans are just trying to get to the playoffs so they can get Henry back. It's not a foregone conclusion that he can come back from this injury this season. I mean, with the way he has produced in his career so far, I'm not taking any chances. So at this point, I'm very close, if I'm a Titans fan, to saying I want to chalk the season and just move on to next year. Let's get Julio more ingrained in the offense. Let's try to get as much as we can, learn about ourselves. But at the end of the day, the Titans are going to struggle, and they have a really tough schedule ahead of them as well, taking on the New England Patriots, who are just absolutely surging. Thank you very much. But they are surging, and, you know, it's going to be a huge test for Tennessee in Foxborough. They get a break with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then they have the Pittsburgh Steelers, the San Francisco 49ers, the Miami Dolphins, and the Houston Texans. Again, a lot of big issues for this team coming up, and I see them losing a couple more games. It's not going to look pretty for the Titans moving forward. Another game that really helped shape the playoff picture, this time in the NFC, though, the Green Bay Packers losing to the Minnesota Vikings. Nick, I told you pregame and all week, really, that the Minnesota Vikings were going to win this game. I had it pegged from early in the preseason. They would split this series. The Packers will beat the Vikings in Lambeau Field, and the Vikings will win in Minnesota. That's exactly what we see here. And the Vikings, they know the Packers better than anyone, almost better than the Packers know themselves. And at this point, you saw Dalvin Cook, you saw Jay Jettas, you saw Adam Thielen, all of these guys really getting into the mix. The Vikings prove that they can really compete in the NFC by beating the Packers? Is it because they know the Packers very well, or are they actually that tough, and can they actually make a run in these playoffs?
Well, I think it's a mix of both. You know this team very well because you're division rivals and you played against the same players for a long time. But I mean, the Minnesota Vikings are a team that notoriously play up and down to their competition. And we're talking about one of the best teams in the NFL, so they're gonna play up to their competition. And they know them, so it makes it that much more competitive. Justin Jefferson, you knew was gonna have a field day because the secondary is beat up with Jair Alexander being out. You've got some young guys that are working well together, but when you look at some of this talent, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, there's only so many players on this defense that could really hold up to that much elite talent. And so you knew that the Vikings were going to be able to move the ball. It was really about how well the offense of the Packers could hold up, and they did for a long time. But the loss of Elgton Jenkins was massive, and now they got to deal with that moving forward. Not having Aaron Jones was massive because A.J. Dillon was not the receiver that Aaron Jones is out of the backfields, and that was hurting Aaron Rodgers, who's dealing with his own injuries, and apparently it's getting much worse as time goes on. So they're just doing more damage to themselves now as well. So the Minnesota Vikings, I think that they have the ability to play against these top teams, but they've got to be able to play against every team because you can't play up and down to your competition. You can't lose the games you're supposed to win and be a playoff team and make a Super Bowl run. So I just think the Vikings, they have their deficiencies and they've got to work through their issues. I don't know if they're for real. I don't think they're for real. I still think that the Packers are a much better team, and the Vikings are going to struggle to even make a playoff spot still.
I mean, as it sits right now, the Minnesota Vikings are sitting about the 6th seed in the NFC with only the New Orleans Saints behind them right now. But the San Francisco 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, possibly the Carolina Panthers can all start making a run. There's still plenty of season left to go for those teams to really be able to set themselves apart for a playoff spot. But taking a look at the schedule for the Minnesota Vikings, I mean, I just talked about one of those teams on their heels. The San Francisco 49ers is their next game. That's going to tell us a lot. Jimmy Garoppolo just went down to Jacksonville and absolutely lambasted the Jaguars, which he should have, but it's hard for a West Coast team to go all the way to the East Coast and do what he did. So I give him credit there, but this is going to be a huge game next week. We're going to see the Vikings in Santa Clara taking on the 49ers, and then it gets a little bit easier as they have the Lions and the Steelers and then the Bears on their schedule. One more tough game against the Rams where they're going to be taking them on the day after Christmas. The Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field on January 2nd, and then the Chicago Bears round out their schedule. So they have at least 3 or 4 more pretty easy victories on here. We're going to learn more about the Vikings when they face the 49ers, when they face the Rams, and when they face the Packers in Lambeau Field. If they can get 2 out of those 3, I think they might be one of the strongest teams in the NFC moving forward.
I mean, it's possible, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I think the Vikings have so many problems on the defensive side of the ball that their offense just won't be able to keep up. Dalvin Cook seems to struggle running this ball because of how bad the offensive line is. Kirk Cousins is under duress constantly, and if Justin Jefferson doesn't get open quick, then they're not going to have a play to make. And when Justin Jefferson gets the ball, you know it's going to be a big play. But if you face a competent defense, they're going to find a way to stop him. Adam Thielen is really just a touchdown machine, nothing between the 20s. So you're really working with Justin Jefferson for the duration of your drive. And if he gets stopped, this offense is really not going to go anywhere. So I don't have that faith in the Vikings to really get the job done. But like you said, they've got to prove it and they've got to show it. We'll see if it happens, but they've got an uphill battle that they're fighting right now.
I mean, they were very close against one of the top contenders in the NFC, the Dallas Cowboys. And I kind of want to talk about the Cowboys a little bit too here, because the Cowboys, they just got shellacked by the Kansas City Chiefs. And it wasn't a pretty game by any stretch of the imagination. I think this was a microcosm, this game was, of the entire season. You saw Tyron Smith was out. You saw Amari Cooper was out. I know we went over this earlier. CeeDee Lamb left it midway through the game. And then on top of that, Ezekiel Elliott essentially missed an entire quarter. I mean, he was just gone. And there was a lot of things that the Cowboys could not get over, a lot of calls that didn't go their way. It all mounted up into a terrible performance by them. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they didn't do anything that showed me that they were dominating this game. They didn't show me that they are the Chiefs of old, where they were just slinging the ball down the field and really just opening up this pass game. It was check down, check down, check down, which is, I gotta give credit. I called out Patrick Mahomes for not being able to do that. He did just that and beat the Cowboys doing it. I believe that the Cowboys and the Chiefs, for that matter, and I'll let you kind of talk about both, but I think that they're both struggling right now. The Chiefs are in a division with the Chargers, who are up and down constantly throughout the season, so that's going to help them a lot. But outside of that, nobody in their division really scares them. And then the Cowboys, you talk about a division that doesn't scare you. The Eagles? I mean, maybe, but the Giants, no. Washington, no. Dallas needs to figure it out, because they're just going to keep dropping. They're lucky they're in the NFC East. That's the only way they'd be making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, for the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't believe in them to keep this up, because they were getting stops constantly by this Dallas defense, who had no reason to really keep their head into this game and to keep what they were doing up, but they found a way to keep playing at a high level. And you see the offensive line completely diminishing under this mediocre pass rush. They made Micah Parsons look like an elite edge defender, and he's not. So I just think that this offensive line is a massive problem still for the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't have a weapon outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, so you're still working through those problems. If you have a competent defense like the Dallas Cowboys, and you couple it with a competent offense, unlike the Dallas Cowboys this week, then the Kansas City Chiefs are going to always find themselves in these situations. You're not always going to have to face a porous offensive line that's missing some of their best players and playing at such a bad level and playing undisciplined all over the field. You're going to have to face other teams like the Buffalo Bills or the New England Patriots or the Tennessee Titans. These teams are much more disciplined. They know how to play both sides of the ball equally well. And these are teams I just don't believe the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be able to get past. They've shown these weaknesses early in the season. They have not gotten any better. They've just faced weaker competition or very hurt competition like this week. And I just think that they are a mirage. They're not going to be able to continue doing this for the rest of the season. They're going to have their issues. They're going to be up and down. And at the end of the day, they may win their division, but they are not a threat to anybody at the top of the AFC right now.
It's tough. The Chiefs have a long way to go to fix this defense and fix the offense as well. Outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, there's nobody that scares any defense whatsoever. So if that's their offense, then good luck to them. But the Cowboys, I mean, their schedule moving forward, pretty easy. It's a lot of gimmies. They face off against the Las Vegas Raiders on Thanksgiving Day, so that's going to be a pretty easy victory for them. The New Orleans Saints are up next after that. Then they have Washington, the Giants, and Washington. Then Arizona, which is their big test January 2nd. And then after that, it's Philadelphia closing out the season. Not a whole hell of a lot to really hang their hat on. If they can string together more victories, obviously they're going to win this division. It's just, can they be ready? Are they going to be battle tested enough to be able to hang in there against somebody that they'd have to face in the NFC, such as maybe the Los Angeles Rams, maybe somebody such as the Minnesota Vikings? There's a lot of teams out there that might be able to get them in the first round. And Cowboys fans don't want to see all of this progress that they've seen this year just to get first rounded by a wild card team.
Yeah, I think the Dallas Cowboys will get better. The problem is they're just dealing with these injuries, and I know you have to play through injuries, but how many injuries are you allowed to say, well, now this is the reason why we're losing games? Because you're missing Tyron Smith, your elite left tackle. You're missing CD and Amari Cooper, your top two elite receivers. And that just puts this offense in such a bad spot. All these injuries happening so close together, the offense doesn't really have time to adjust to the new players around them, to get used to it. You saw the offensive line have so many issues because they don't have their chemistry down. The wide receivers don't have the chemistry with Dak Prescott. It seems like Dalton Schultz is the only receiver who has some sort of chemistry with Dak Prescott, and he's the only one he really trusts. It wasn't until the fourth quarter where we see Ezekiel Elliott get involved in this receiving game. So I think that you have to take into consideration all the injuries, but they're going to have to deal with this for the remainder of the season, as it's going to take time for these players to come back, if they come back at all. And so we got to work through it. But I think that the Dallas Cowboys have enough talent around them to put it together, to continue it. And it's really because of this defense, how strong they're playing. I believe that they are really holding this team together. They are the glue right now. And as long as they're playing at this level, I think that the Dallas Cowboys are still one of the best teams in the NFC.
I think the Arizona Cardinals might have something to say about losing players of necessity and still winning football games.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course not. No, for sure. I think the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to get their players back. CeeDee Lamb suffered a concussion. Mari Cooper contracted COVID or tested positive for it at least. And those guys will at least come back. Dak Prescott will have his weapons, so I'm not worried about that. Tyron Smith, though, he seems to get injured often over the last couple of seasons, so really looking forward to him getting healthy, and hopefully he can be a factor for them moving forward, because Terrence Steele is not the answer. I'll tell you that right now. All right, well, before we get out of here, Nick, tonight is Monday Night Football, and as always, we have to give our predictions. So we see the Giants going down to Tampa Bay to take on Tom Brady, who is not happy with things the way they went last week. So who you got? Giants, Buccaneers?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close matchup. I think it's going to be a really high-scoring game, but at the end of the day, I'm taking Tom Brady. He's going to start getting this team back in the right direction. They're going to go on a long win streak with the easy schedule that they have laid out in front of them. The Giants are just to start it off, and it should be a pretty sweet win for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football.
I have the Buccaneers, but I'm going to take them by a lot. I don't think that they need to leave any doubt right now. This team needs a massive victory like we saw from some of the other teams in the NFL over the last couple of weeks. This Buccaneers team needs either a shutout or just an absolute 50-burger just being put up there. They need something. They need to hang their hat on something. Otherwise, Tom Brady's looking pretty tired right there. All right, well, I want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you thought about Week 11 in the NFL. Let us know what you think about your teams moving forward. Let us know in the comments below. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.